Today on the 5-Minute Sales Training, how to sell to Generation X buyers. Welcome back, everyone, to another 5-Minute Sales Training where we're in part 2 of a series on selling to buyers in different generations. And today we're going to be talking about selling to Gen X. I went to an expert, Chelsea Timmons from Austin, Texas, to be able to discuss some of the intricacies of the Gen X buyers. I think you're going to enjoy this interview with Chelsea Timmons. All right, Chelsea Timmons, always glad to see you. How you been, my friend?
I am doing great, Jeff. How are you?
Good, really, really good. We're doing this series here on different buyer profiles. We talked last week about millennial buyers. Today we're talking about the Gen X buyer. Oftentimes, not necessarily, but oftentimes a move-up buyer. Tell me a little bit about what makes that buyer profile unique in personality.
Sure. So Gen Xers were born between, they say about 1965 and 1980. So they today are about 43 to 58 years old or so. And the typical family started to look a little different when Gen X came around, namely that they had more working mothers and they had a higher divorce rate. So this in turn led to more of the phrase latchkey kids was born for this generation. And those are kids that were hanging out at home without grown-ups after school until their parents came home from work. So this buyer audience is pretty different, right? They have certain things like self-reliance, responsibility, hard work, trustworthiness. They're still made a little different than the rest.
It's interesting. When we contrast the Gen X with the millennial, I don't want to suggest the millennials are not hardworking, but they have a different definition of even what they want their career to look like. When you look at the Gen X, is it fair to say a little bit more gritty in their approach?
I agree. Yes. I think they're a very highly motivated generation, mostly because they had seen some things in their childhood and they thought, I'd like my life to look a little different than this one. I'd like to raise my family a little differently. They were raised by traditional parents that you typically see a Gen X buyer kind of debunking some of that traditionalism, if you will, and forging their own path. And you have to have grittiness in order to forge your own way.
What makes them enjoyable to work with? What makes them difficult to work with?
Oh, good question. Gen Xers have been dubbed the work hard, play hard generation. And so I think that makes them really enjoyable to work with. They want to work really hard and then go on some nice lavish vacations. And so they entered the workforce in a time when technology hadn't really made it fully possible to be on call 24/7. So you'll find that Gen Xers actually have a very healthy work-life balance. They actually coined that phrase, work-life balance, when they entered the workforce. And so what makes the Generation X enjoyable to work with is that our new home sales professionals feel like their time and their boundaries are very respected by the Gen X buyers. So they're not getting 10 p.m. phone calls and late night emails from the Gen X buyers because the Gen X buyers have been working hard all day and now they're sleeping.
I love that. And it seems to me then that when it would be more enjoyable if I'm showing a home to a Gen Xer because they're going to appreciate what the home does for their life. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to appreciate the aesthetic appeal and everything else, but they're, based on what you're saying, it's going to be very much about the experience of how I live in this home and how this home, how the lifestyle in the home is something of a reward for all that hard work.
Yes. And the Gen X buyers are tech savvy, but they're not tech dependent, right? They're not like the millennials and the generations that came after them that were born with cell phones in their hand or born with access to the internet. And so they're going to be impressed by a tech savvy home, but they don't have a very strict guideline on every house that they buy that has to be just completely outfitted and ultra techy. What makes them a bit harder to work with, though, is that Gen Xers are not necessarily drawn towards cities like our millennial buyer. They don't live in a cool city. Gen Xers are focused more on communities, and they really love themselves a well-amenitized community. So if you're finding yourself in a neighborhood where you don't have a lot of amenities or a lot to do, that could be a turn-on from a Gen X buyer. This is a buyer who you may have seen at like an all-inclusive resort in Mexico or gone to a nice hotel in Vegas, like the Wynn Resort. Every time you go there, you say, "Oh, how's everything here? I never have to leave." our Gen X buyers really like that. And so if you find yourself selling in a community that isn't highly amenitized, or doesn't have a lot to do, maybe it's a little further on the outskirts, that could be something that makes it difficult for the Gen X buyer.
What is your opinion when it comes to the importance of status? As I contrast the Gen X buyer to, say, a baby boomer. Now, I'm a young baby boomer, but I am a baby boomer. You talk to baby boomers, and they love to quote their square footage. The home is it's a medallion that sort of proves where they are, their place in life. Did any of that transfer over to the Gen Xers, or do they stay clear of that concept?
Oh, I think some of it transferred. Your Gen Xers, from what I've seen, they like to entertain. They like to have friends over. They like to show them their big patios and to hit the grill and things like that. So I think some of that status did, I think it did translate a bit, but it's more in experiences. So they want to invite their friends and their family over to see all the fun things that they've got.
Last question here. You've got a salesperson who has only been selling to first-time buyers. Now they're moving up to a Gen X buyer and specifically in a move-up location. What advice do you have for that salesperson?
Oh, man. Well, affordability is a real concern right now. And if you have been selling only to first-time buyers or only into entry-level buyers, the news is encouraging. And it's that all generations are struggling to find affordable homes right now. But Gen X stands the best chance. So when you calculate how many Americans can actually afford to set aside a down payment on their home, it is actually the hardest right now for boomers, millennials, and Gen Z. It's actually the easiest right now for Gen X. So Gen Xers are those who have a stable, good job, but they're also not so tied up in loyalty, like maybe our boomers, that they're not afraid to leave that job for another opportunity. And they're also not job hoppers like some of the other generations as well. And so what you've found is that Gen Xers are savers, and they have the easiest time right now setting aside money for a down payment. So congratulations, if you've got a Gen Xer who's walking in your office. I think that's gold. I think they've got an easier time qualifying in most cases. And there's someone who wants to work hard and play hard and respect your time. So it's actually one of my very favorite demographics to sell to.
Sheer brilliance. Chelsea Timmons, thanks for sharing your wisdom. That was really, really helpful. Thank you. Well, there you go. Wise words from Chelsea Timmons on selling to Generation X. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you're subscribing, sharing, liking these videos. We appreciate it so much. And until next time, learn more to earn more.